23 people died after the plane had already landed safely. Not during the dive through thick smoke, not during the emergency descent, not during the landing itself. After. The pilots had already done the impossible. They had brought a burning aircraft down in one piece, and every single passenger was still alive when the wheels touched the runway in Cincinnati. Then the doors opened. In the next 90 seconds, 23 people who had survived everything were gone. Some investigators found them still buckled into their seats just rows from the exit. So what exactly happened in those 90 seconds? And why did opening a door turn a successful emergency landing into one of aviation's deadliest moments? June 2, 1983, a Thursday evening. Air Canada Flight 797 lifts off from Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport bound for Montreal, carrying 41 passengers and a crew of 5. The aircraft is a McDonnell Douglas DC-9, a workhorse of commercial aviation, trusted, well-maintained, and in routine service. Nothing about this departure raises a single flag. But to understand what happened at 33,000 feet that night, you need to understand the world those passengers stepped into when they boarded that plane. The early 1980s represented a specific moment in aviation history, a period of rapid expansion when air travel had become genuinely democratic for the first time. Ordinary people were flying, families, businessmen, retirees booking their first transatlantic connections. The industry had grown faster than its safety frameworks could keep pace with. Cabin interiors in this era were built for comfort and cost efficiency, not fire resistance. Seat foam, wall panels, carpet, almost every surface was petroleum-based synthetic material, flammable. And in a sealed, pressurized tube cruising at altitude, that detail would prove catastrophic. The crew aboard Flight 797 were experienced professionals. Captain Donald Cameron had logged thousands of flight hours. First Officer Claude Ouimet knew that aircraft intimately. These were not rookies. They understood that their job, above everything else, was to get 46 people onto the ground alive, and on that measure, they would succeed completely. The passengers had no reason to fear anything. Some were sleeping, some were eating, a few were reading. They had surrendered their safety, as all air travelers do, to the machine around them and the professionals flying it. What none of them knew, what no one on that plane could have known, was that somewhere in the rear lavatory, a fire had already begun, quietly, invisibly, feeding on the walls of the aircraft around them while the cabin lights burned steady and the engines hummed. June 2, 1983. Air Canada Flight 797 lifts off from Dallas-Fort Worth at 16:23 local time, bound for Montreal with a stop in Toronto. On board, 41 passengers and a crew of 5. The aircraft is a McDonnell Douglas DC-9, a workhorse of commercial aviation, reliable, well-maintained. Nothing about it that morning suggests anything other than a routine flight. At cruising altitude, somewhere over Kentucky at 33,000 feet, a flight attendant named Sergio Bonetti walks to the rear lavatory and notices something wrong. Smoke. Not a trace of it. A real building presence seeping from underneath the lavatory door. He reports it immediately. The crew investigates, attempts to locate the source, and within minutes the situation shifts from concern to crisis. Smoke is spreading through the rear cabin. Passengers can taste it. The air is thickening in a way that no amount of calm reassurance can explain away. Captain Donald Cameron makes a decision that will later be called one of the most composed emergency responses in aviation history. He declares an emergency, begins an immediate descent, and diverts to Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky Airport. He does not hesitate. He does not wait to confirm the source of the smoke or assess whether the situation might resolve itself. He puts that plane on a path to the ground, fast. What the crew cannot know is that somewhere behind the lavatory wall, a fire has been feeding quietly on the aircraft's own interior, melting wiring, consuming insulation, working through the fuselage in near silence. Here is the detail almost no one talks about. Investigators would later determine the fire likely started inside the rear lavatory wall, possibly ignited by an electrical fault in the flush motor. But the DC-9's design meant large sections of the interior were inaccessible during flight. The fire was invisible, not just difficult to find, but structurally hidden. The crew was fighting something they could not see, could not reach, and could not extinguish. Every minute they remained airborne, the hidden fire grew. Flight attendants Judy Davidson and Laura Kayama work the cabin under conditions most people cannot imagine. Visibility drops. Passengers panic. The smoke is not just thick, it is toxic, laced with the combustion products of burning synthetic materials. Several passengers lose consciousness before the aircraft even touches down. Davidson and Kayama keep moving, keep directing, keep people in their seats and low, breathing the marginally cleaner air near the floor. Their actions keep the cabin from descending into complete chaos. At 16:58, 35 minutes after the first report of smoke, Captain Cameron puts Flight 797 down on the runway in Cincinnati. A textbook emergency landing. The aircraft is intact. The passengers are alive. Ground crews race toward the plane, and for a single suspended moment, it appears the crisis is over. 46 people will survive this. The crew has done the impossible, but the fire inside the cabin walls has spent 35 minutes consuming every scrap of oxygen it could find. It has been feeding slowly, quietly, constrained only by the sealed environment of a pressurized aircraft at altitude. The interior materials, seats, wall panels, insulation, have not burned. They have charred and smoldered and degraded into a state of suspended ignition, waiting for one thing. The forward door opens at 17 o'clock. Fresh air rushes in. The chemistry is instant and catastrophic. Oxygen floods a cabin that is essentially a sealed chamber of superheated combustible gases, a condition known as flashover. Within seconds, the entire rear section of the aircraft erupts in a fireball. Not a growing fire, not a spreading flame, a fireball. Sudden, total, absolute. Survivors who made it through the forward exits described turning to look back and seeing a solid wall of orange, top to bottom, filling the fuselage from seat level to ceiling. 23 people do not make it out. Some are found still buckled into their seats, not near the back, not hopelessly far from an exit. Some are found within rows of the doors. The fire moved faster than they did, faster than anyone could have anticipated, because no one had ever seen a flashover behave quite like this inside an aircraft cabin before. The pilots did everything right. The crew performed under impossible conditions. The plane landed safely, and then 90 seconds later, 23 people were gone. Which raises the question no aviation authority could ignore. What exactly were they missing about fire? June 2nd, 1983. 41,000 feet above the American Midwest, Air Canada Flight 797 carries 41 passengers and a crew of 5 from Dallas to Montreal. The cabin is quiet. People read. People sleep. Nobody smells it at first. Then a flight attendant notices something wrong in the rear lavatory. Smoke. Thin at first, curling under the door like a living thing. She reports it immediately. The crew investigates. They find no visible flame, just smoke, persistent and growing, seeping from somewhere inside the aircraft's walls. The pilots begin an emergency descent. They are calm. They are precise. They do everything the training demands. But the smoke keeps building. Within minutes it turns black and thick, pouring through the cabin in waves. Passengers press their faces to their knees. Eyes burn. Throats close. The air becomes something you cannot breathe. Flight 797 drops out of the sky toward Greater Cincinnati Airport with terrifying speed. The crew has maybe minutes before the cockpit itself becomes unworkable. Visibility inside the plane approaches zero. Passengers cannot see the person sitting next to them. At 7:52 p.m., the wheels hit the runway hard. The aircraft rolls, slows, stops. 23 seconds from touchdown to full stop. A near-perfect emergency landing under impossible conditions. The pilots have done it. They have actually done it. The doors open. For 1 second, maybe 2, there is air. Real air. Survivors would later describe a single breath of something clean, a flash of clarity, the sensation of actually believing they were going to live. Then the fire comes. The smoldering interior, starved of oxygen for the entire descent, feeding quietly on seat foam and wall panels and carpeting, erupts the instant fresh air floods the cabin. Not a gradual build, a flashover. Instantaneous. A wall of flame rolling forward through the fuselage at a speed no human being can outrun. The temperature in the rear of the cabin spikes to over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit in seconds. Passengers near the front exits make it out. They stumble onto the tarmac, some of them on fire, some of them already in shock. 46 people escape the aircraft. 23 do not. Rescuers board the plane after the fire suppression teams work it down. What they find stops them cold. Several victims sit still, buckled into their seats. Not near the back, not trapped by debris. Some of them within 6 rows of an open exit door. The flashover moved faster than they could. One breath of clean air, and then nothing. The fire took them before they could even stand. Survivors describe the same sequence over and over in the days that follow. The door opens, a moment of relief so overwhelming it feels physical. Then a sound like a roar, a heat that arrives before the light does, and complete darkness. The plane landed safely. The crew performed flawlessly, every protocol held. And 23 people died anyway. Not because something went wrong, but because the danger everyone assumed was over had simply been waiting for the right moment to finish what it started. The 46 people who walked away from runway 32 left in Cincinnati carried something invisible with them. Trauma that doesn't show up on a medical chart. Several survivors reported being unable to enter any enclosed space for months. Some never flew again. A few gave testimony to investigators while still being treated for burns because they needed someone, anyone, to understand what had happened inside that aircraft in those final 90 seconds. They needed it to mean something. Air Canada faced intense scrutiny. The airline was not criminally charged. No individual was prosecuted. The fire's origin was traced to a cigarette, almost certainly discarded in the lavatory. But proving deliberate wrongdoing was impossible, and negligence in the criminal sense was never established. For families of the 23 who died, that absence of accountability left a wound that never fully closed. A textbook landing, a crew that performed flawlessly, and still, 23 people buckled into their seats never came home. What followed was a reckoning the aviation industry could not avoid. The FAA mandated fire-blocking layers on all seat cushions, materials that resist ignition and slow the spread of flame. Floor-level emergency lighting became a requirement because smoke fills a cabin from the ceiling down, and a passenger crawling beneath the toxic layer needs to see an exit. Halon fire suppression systems in lavatories were upgraded. Smoke detector sensitivity standards were tightened. Every single one of those changes came directly from Flight 797. This is the pattern that runs through aviation tragedy and through disaster history more broadly. The rules that protect you today were written in the aftermath of someone else's death. The exit row you sit in, the brace position you've been shown, the smoke hood that some airlines now carry. None of it existed in a vacuum. Someone died first, then the standard changed. Flight 797 belongs in that lineage not because it was the deadliest crash in history. It wasn't, but because of what it revealed. It proved that surviving the emergency is not the same as surviving the danger. It forced an entire industry to confront the gap between a successful landing and a safe outcome. That gap, it turned out, could kill 23 people in 90 seconds on a clear afternoon with rescue workers standing 50 yards away. The crew of Flight 797 saved 46 lives. The investigation that followed almost certainly saved thousands more. But those 23 passengers deserve to walk off that plane. That fact should never be footnoted, and it should never be forgotten. Air Canada Flight 797 landed safely. The pilots did everything right. The passengers were alive. And then the doors opened. 23 people died not because the landing failed, but because the danger had never left. It had simply been waiting for air. Aviation was never the same after June 2nd, 1983. The seats you sit in, the lights along the floor, the detectors above your head, paid for in full by the people who never walked off that plane. So tell me, what other disasters do you think ended safely but didn't?